All of the overseas news sites, the web pages of the overseas newspapers that I subscribe to and spend quite a lot of time on have in the last week or so written at least once, many of them more than once, about a massive El Nino which is being forecast. And climate scientists across Europe and the Americas saying there's an increasing probability that the El Nino currently developing in the Pacific Ocean could be one of the strongest on record. And it could rival the one in the late 1870s. I remember it well. It was terrible. It caused record-breaking droughts, triggered disastrous famines, and resulted millions of deaths, including in southern Africa. Professor Willem Landman joins us now, a meteorologist at the University of Pretoria, specialising in SADC seasonal climate prediction. Willem, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Anna. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm all right, thank you very much, and I hope you're better than that.
Very well, thanks.
I'm not so sure that our connection is as healthy as I would like it to be, but we'll give it a try. Willem, do you share the consensus view from the climate scientists I've been reading in international media that potentially we have a massive El Nino problem heading our way?
Yes, there's definitely strong evidence that there's an El Nino developing, and it's going to be a very strong one. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So we are definitely in agreement. What is a bit sad, I have to admit, is that we should actually hear from the Americans or the Europeans saying they've read something from the South African weather and climate community that there's an El Nino coming. But the consensus here from our modeling group and the Weather Service and from my colleagues at the University of Cape Town and maybe even Wits University, they are very sure that there's an El Nino coming and it's going to be massive.
And how can one be sure about that? Because I suspect the vast majority of people listening to us, including me listening to myself, really doesn't look. We know it's about the warming of the Pacific Ocean and the impact that then has on weather systems around the world. But what's happening at the moment that makes you so sure that once it's over to you?
There are two things we look at. We need to see what the current conditions are in the Pacific Ocean to see whether there's already the indication that this kind of system is developing, and it's there. We see it happening already. And then we have to rely on our climate models. And these climate models are very reliable on this time scale of a couple of months ahead. So especially once we have gone into winter like we are now, the confidence that we have in our model predictions of a coming El Nino or La Nina event, that confidence increases considerably. So at this time of the year, we are kind of sure that these models are onto something. And the majority of them, and in fact all of them that we look at, including the ones that we run locally in Southern Africa, are showing that there's warming happening, and this warming will continue to result in a rather strong event. The forecasts for the moment are just mainly going up to midsummer at the most. This time of the year, we can only go as far as about December or thereabouts. The forecast for that period from these models, including what we are seeing currently, they are definitely making us very confident that there's such a system developing.
And once the system has developed, now, down here in the Southwest Cape, apparently we are not as vulnerable to El Nino phenomena as the north, the west, and the northeast of the country are. So what potentially is that? We've been living through incredible storms. We've had terrible tropical storms. KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga have suffered very badly over the last couple of years. So what's different? What should we be looking out for in terms of actual weather events?
Yeah, so when we have La Nina events, we have, for example, seen that these tropical cyclones have a greater chance of making landfall. So that means it can directly impact places like KZN. But during El Nino events, it's not the case. So we sometimes see that these events, these big storms, these tropical storms don't reach us. They can sometimes develop in the channel, I suppose, and associated with these big storms, we get a lot of subsidence. That means air that goes downwards, and we want the rising air for thunderstorm development, for example. So these systems can affect us from afar, but for the most part, when we are looking at an El Nino season, we don't really see these kind of events. But I think we should just also remember that when we have an El Nino, it doesn't mean with the summer rainfall regions that there's not any rain. If I look at my own house where I take measurements, during the recent El Nino events over the summer period, we can easily get into 600 millimeters and above. So it's not that there's no rain. But compare that 600 millimeters to a really wet season, it's about half the amount. So that's the problem. It's not like we don't get rain. It's just that it's not a lot. And what sometimes happens is that these rainfall events are many days apart. And during an El Nino event, there's also the likelihood that things are warming up. It's warmer than usual. So less rain, fewer days of rain, and high temperatures. That's normally a recipe for a big problem for crops, for example.
And obviously, I suppose, our focus is on ourselves, but the world is incredibly interconnected, and if this El Nino has terrible consequences for other parts of the world, that can have an indirect impact on us, and in terms of what we can sell and what we need to buy to feed ourselves and so on. So, I mean, potentially what damage could it do in the parts of the world that are closest to where the El Nino event is developing in the Pacific Ocean?
Yeah, no, definitely that can have global impacts. But I know, for example, there's areas such as Uruguay, Paraguay, parts of Argentina, they actually get lots of rain during El Nino events. That's also a grain-producing area, so I guess we will be importing from them. My main problem is, I think, when we look at SADC, Southern Africa, if we have a drought associated also with higher temperatures that we normally find during El Nino events, and the fact that the climate is warming up, I think that could have massive implications for our own region. You don't even have to worry about that, what happens elsewhere. Because our own region has many subsistence farmers that really don't have a choice. They have to plant. And so that's a big concern. So if there's going to be people who have to plant, they have to eat or die, put it bluntly. If there's higher temperatures and there's rain, I'm worried for those people.
Thank you very, very much. Willem, just before I say goodbye, is there a point at which we go, it's definitely going to be really bad, or, oh, thank goodness it doesn't look as bad as the worst thinking at the beginning stages of this?
Okay, so I think we're at this stage where we have very little doubt that there's an El Nino. But now we have to see, by using our models, how is the atmosphere going to respond to this El Nino, which is an ocean forcing. It happens over the ocean areas. So if the atmosphere responds in the way that it normally does, then we will have problems. But at this moment in time, we are not too confident that this will necessarily lead to a drought. We need to be getting a bit closer to our summer rainfall season. I would say that once we get to July or August, we will have much more confidence to see what will happen with the atmospheric response to this strong El Nino's development.
Well, we will check in with you again then, if you don't mind, closer to our summer rainfall season. Professor Willem Landman, meteorologist at the University of Pretoria, specialising in SADC seasonal climate prediction.